Training sessions were organised using elaborate models of the target area. Raiding became compulsory for all regiments, and laggards were rooted out.
Higher ranks appeared in our midst. Chief of all, the Brigadier General, followed by an almost equally menacing staff captain. What was my name? I had not been round the company's wire. Why not? I was to go.
Reports of daring raids were duly submitted, but some at HQ, like Brigadier General Crozier, smelt a rat.
It became increasingly difficult as time went on to obtain correct reports from officers' patrols. It was my habit to order samples of German wire to be cut and brought back. Thus one would know that the German line had been visited.
At least one squad of reluctant raiders had an answer to that. They found a large coil of German barbed wire in no man's land and just snipped bits off, sending them in with bogus reports.
That went on every night. And the old man never knew we had a coil of jerry wire on our side.
Many, though, entered the spirit, proudly displaying their trophies. Raiding and shelling helped put the war back into the gaps between battles. One night in May 1916, Siegfried Sassoon joined a raiding party into no man's land.
The raiders vanished into the darkness on all fours. I crawled out after them. Shells started to fire. News came back. O'Brien says it's a washout. They can't get through the wire. The bomb burst. Then a concentration of angry flashes. Wounded men were crawling back. Among them a grey-haired lance corporal who'd had one of his feet almost blown off. Thank God for this. I've been waiting 18 months for it, and now I can go home.
Sassoon's raid was launched from these trenches. The objective? This ridge. But it all went badly wrong.
I went to look for O'Brien, groping my way along the edge of a crater. Bullets hit the water near me. There I discovered him. He moaned. He'd been hit several times. The stretcher bearer bent over him, then straightened. In a surprising gesture, he took off his helmet. O'Brien had been one of the best men in our company.
Shelling was the biggest killer of the war. Live and let live continued on and off, but the loss of comrades made it increasingly difficult to sustain.
Speaking for my companions and myself, I can categorically state that we were in no mood for any joviality with Jerry. We hated his guts. We were bent on his destruction at each and every opportunity. Our greatest wish was to be granted an enemy target worthy of our Vickers machine gun.
We were under shell fire for 8 hours. It was like a dream. Some of the men looked quite insane after the charge. As we entered the German trenches, A great number came out asking for mercy. Needless to say, they were shot right off. The Royal Scots took about 300 prisoners and immediately shot the whole lot.
There were many cases on both sides of prisoners being killed after surrender. Such atrocities fueled hatred further. But many prisoners were captured. They provided excellent opportunities for propaganda. British newsreel film of German POWs was used to convince audiences back home that Britain was gaining the upper hand. By the end of the war, there were nearly 9 million prisoners in total, and captivity was not their only hardship.
It's already been 2 years since you were here last, and Mother Nature needs to fulfill her urges again. As you can't come and see me, I'm forced to go looking elsewhere. Don't think I'm joking, I'm serious. I don't care what you think of me, but you can't expect me to waste my youth like this. After all, I'm not made of wood, and what a person needs, a person must get. Please don't be cross with me, will you? Your ever-loving Thelma. Your sweet children send you lots of love.
Another German wife was careful to reassure her absent husband.
We've got a real slut in our house who's always got someone new with her. That bitch isn't good enough for such a decent man. The poor thing fights at the front, while she swans off to the cinema and the pub with the other fellas back home. Dearest man, please don't think evil thoughts, because there are also good women who are faithful to their men.
Letters from home were the soldier's lifeline. German troops were offered these beguiling colour postcards to reassure loved ones that they were comfortable, happy and safe. But news from the front was rarely so cosy. A German factory worker, learning that her husband had been killed, wrote to her boss to resign.
My beloved husband worked here for years, and I did the same work with his tools, and I was proud that while he was fighting at the front, I could represent him here. It was not always pleasant in the factory, but my husband's letters gave me courage. And so, until his death, the job was sacrosanct to me. That's why I can't do it anymore.
More and more women in Germany, France and Britain were making munitions. Many men were contemptuous of women's abilities to do their jobs, and fearful that if they managed it, the women might not clear off after the war. Jeannie Riley wrote to her husband at the front about her new job.
We were told that the amount of work we do in 3 weeks would have taken the men 3 years. And Jamie, the men are getting quite mad at us. One woman I work with, well, she lost her finger in a machine in the works. But she's a tough one. When she came back from the Western Infirmary, she carried on like nothing had happened. I have to get up at 4:30 every morning. So I'll have you up at the same time when you come home, if God spares you.
Jeannie's husband Jamie did come safely home. The most important battle Jeannie Riley and her colleagues were working towards in 1916 was the Somme. It's now a byword for wholesale suffering and slaughter, but its architect, General Sir Henry Rawlinson, conceived it as an offensive with limited objectives, more dependent on guns than manpower.
With plenty of guns and ammunition, we ought to be able to avoid the heavy losses which the infantry have always suffered on previous occasions.
The French were due to play the lead role, but with Verdun dragging on, the British bore the brunt. And there was intense political pressure to deliver a victory. General Sir Douglas Haig was the British Army's commander-in-chief. He turned Rawlinson's plan into a major offensive. When the British guns opened up on the Somme on the 24th of June 1916, the windows rattled in London 160 miles away. But after 7 days of bombardment, the British artillery had neither silenced the German guns nor destroyed their defences. A sergeant of the Tyneside Irish went over the top on the 1st of July, with lines of men on either side of him.
I heard the patter-patter of machine guns in the distance. By the time I'd gone another 10 yards, there seemed to be only a few men left around me. By the time I'd gone another 20 yards, I seemed to be on my own. Then I was hit myself.
Farmers around the Somme still gather a harvest of iron for the French army to collect and defuse. In this war, what happened in the factory directly affected the outcome on the battlefield. 30% of British shells fired on the Somme were duds, a drastic failure of quality control. But the key factor was that there weren't enough heavy guns, and British artillery wasn't much good. On that terrible first day, it became clear that the French knew what they were doing, and the British did not.
The French artillery, in their attacks, did not shoot the ground to bits before they moved over it. A short, intense bombardment, followed by a rush of men, gave them the position clean and intact. We would shoot our ground into a quagmire and then send troops slowly forward over it and expect them to provide their own cover from the enemy's retaliation.